Hello and welcome to the NEH Institutes webinar for prospective applicants. Institutes are 1 to 4 week professional development programs that provide stipends for a nationwide audience of educators, either at the K-12 or higher education level, to deepen their understanding of a variety of humanities topics and to enrich their capacity for effective teaching and scholarship. Applications due in February 2025 for this current cycle are for programs taking place in 2026. Today's webinar will provide an overview of the program and application process. First, some introductions. I'm LaQuanda Walters Cooper, a program officer in the Division of Education and program lead for the Institute's program.
And I'm Emily Brantley, program analyst for the Institute's program. Together, we represent a team of approximately 10 other program officers. We want to begin by pointing out important dates for the upcoming application cycle. We will hold a live Q&A session for this grant program on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024 at 12 p.m. Eastern. We're accepting optional drafts until 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Monday, January 6, 2025. Potential applicants may send draft narratives to the Institute's program inbox, and a program officer will review your draft and provide you with feedback. Draft narratives must be no more than 10 pages long for new applicants and 12 pages long for returning applicants. Final applications will be due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, February 12, 2025, via grants.gov. This presentation will roughly follow the formatting of our Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, which contains grant information for both institutes for K-12 educators and institutes for higher education faculty. If you don't currently have this document nearby, we strongly encourage you to access it. Our website has undergone some edits over the summer, so please follow these instructions for accessing the NOFO. Visit the website for the program you're interested in applying for and locate and click on the Application Instructions tab. Once on the Application Instructions page, click on Review Your Application Package, and then click the link for the Notice of Funding Opportunity. The links for these pages are included in the description section below this video for easy access. While this webinar will not cover every detail contained in the NOFO, we will provide a general overview, highlight some of the most important parts, and point out areas that are different this year. This document contains grant information for both the Institutes for K-12 educators and Institutes for higher education faculty programs.
The NOFO is your guide for how to build a strong application, so we encourage you to become familiar with it and refer to it as you develop your application. The NOFO is organized into 3 parts. Part 1, sections A, B, and C, describes what this program is about, what we're looking for, who's eligible, etc. Part 2, or section D, lays out the specifics of what exactly should be included in your application, including formatting guidance. And Part 3, sections E and F, contains application review information, such as the review criteria for applications and a description of the application review process. Before we begin discussing the Institute's program, we want to provide some programmatic updates, especially for teams who have applied to run an institute in the past. First, a clarification on the definition of a previously funded project. You are considered a returning applicant if your project director or co-project directors have been previously awarded under the Institute's landmarks or seminar programs. Next, a clarification regarding accessibility. For combined format projects, virtual and residential sessions will occur at different times, but all participants attend in the same format simultaneously unless modifications are needed for accessibility accommodations. Additionally, host institutions must provide reasonable accommodations for project team members, participants, presenters, and institution staff by ensuring facilities, program activities, and sites are accessible to a diverse group of people. Next, a clarification regarding application attachments. For attachment 4, Each resume for key personnel in the attachment must not exceed 2 pages. And finally, a clarification regarding the content of draft submissions. Only draft narratives may be submitted for review. As previously noted in the important dates section, draft narratives must be no more than 10 pages long for new applicants and 12 pages long for returning applicants. As previously stated, institutes are 1 to 4 week professional development programs that provide stipends for a nationwide audience of educators, either at the K-12 or higher education level, to deepen their understanding of a variety of humanities topics and enrich their capacity for effective teaching and scholarship. Institutes can offer their programs in one of 3 formats: residential, virtual, or combined. Applications due in February 2025 for this current cycle are for programs taking place in 2026.
Institutes should immerse participants in studying significant humanities topics in new or existing areas of study. They should kindle participants' spark for teaching and foster lasting and impactful intellectual and professional communities. As you're applying to the National Endowment for the Humanities, it is essential to keep the humanities at the core of your project. We recommend grounding your proposed project in significant humanities texts and resources and using multiple approaches to explore your topic. Institutes host 25 to 36 participants and are designed primarily for an audience of classroom educators, be they K-12 teachers or faculty who teach undergraduate students. Project applications must indicate the specific number of participants that the proposed program will accommodate. You must draw from a nationwide audience of educators. Proposed projects aimed specifically at educators from one municipality, state, or region are not appropriate for this grant program. Institutes for higher education faculty must reserve 20% of available spaces for non-tenured or non-tenured track faculty and 10% of available spaces for advanced graduate students. Institutes for K-12 educators must reserve 20% of available spaces for educators who have been in the field for 5 years or fewer. Participant spots may also be filled by other educators like librarians, museum professionals, and academic personnel, provided that their participation advances project goals and enhances their own professional work. We encourage you to seek a broad and diverse participant cohort with a diversity of disciplines and academic backgrounds, but you may target more focused audiences by designating additional special qualifications. For example, you could require proficiency in a foreign language, such as Latin, for a project focused on Roman literature. For K-12 projects, all K-12 teachers are eligible for all K-12 projects and should not be excluded based on what grade they teach. However, your application must state which grade level or levels your project is primarily designed for: K through 5, 6 through 8, and/or 9 through 12.
Now let's move on to format and program of study. As previously stated, institutes can offer their program of study in one of 3 formats: residential, virtual, or combined. In the residential format, all participants attend the program on site. In the virtual format, all participants attend the program online, whether synchronously or asynchronously. In the combined format, all participants attend part of the program online and part of the program on site. All participants must be engaged in the same format simultaneously, unless modifications are needed for accessibility accommodations. Participant stipends are determined by NEH based on both the format and duration of the institute. One set of rates for residential and combined programs, and another for fully virtual programs. Institute's programs of study can take place before, during, and/or after the traditional summer season, and sessions can be offered in consecutive weeks and/or spread out over a longer period of time. Institutes run from 1 to 4 weeks, and for combined and virtual programs who might be spreading their sessions out, 1 week should be understood as 5 to 6 days of structured study. Additionally, we encourage Institute's project teams to consider a variety of post-project outreach activities for participants, such as project resource pages, group follow-up sessions, listservs, social media posts or groups, and conference presentations. Your project team must include a project director or co-director team. Directors should be established humanities scholars and are responsible for all of the project's intellectual and administrative aspects. If applicable, you must state how co-director teams are dividing responsibilities. It is not required for project directors to be employed by or affiliated with the applicant institution. In fact, a growing number of projects have co-directors across multiple institutions. Additionally, more projects are being hosted off-site with partnering institutions. For example, in one recently funded project, the applicant institution, Eastern Michigan University, ran its institute in Detroit in collaboration with Wayne State University and the University of Michigan. If you're planning a collaborative effort such as this, your letters of support and commitment must directly acknowledge support for these collaborations. A replacement director or directors. Should a director become unable to fulfill their role, an appropriately qualified replacement director must be identified in advance. Replacement directors must be either a co-director or project team member who is already familiar with the project. K-12 institutes must include at least one K-12 specialist to be involved throughout project planning and implementation. This person should have demonstrated excellence and leadership experience in K-12 classrooms and with K-12 curricula. For repeat directors and institutes, past participants may be a good place to start. All teams will likely also include additional visiting scholars and academic staff who bring different perspectives or resources to your project. Teams will also likely include administrative and technology support staff, such as project managers, instructional designers, or technological experts, depending on the proposed project's design. All teams must include an institutional grant administrator who is different from your project directors. This person is the designated representative of the applicant institution and has the authority to act on the organization's behalf regarding the administration of the award.
If you are interested in applying to direct an institute, make sure that you have an eligible organization on board with your project, because you cannot apply for this grant as an individual. Federal entities, foreign organizations, and for-profit organizations are also ineligible to apply. The NEH cannot award grants to non-federal entities whose projects are so closely intertwined with another federal entity that the project takes on characteristics of that federal entity's own authorized activities, nor can we fund projects that directly benefit another federal entity. Note that directors and co-directors of institutes and projects in our sibling program, Landmarks of American History of Culture, cannot repeat in consecutive years. Previously funded project teams must wait 1 year before reapplying, as your application must include all participant evaluations from the most recent iteration of your institute or landmarks program and include a discussion of programmatic modifications as needed.
So now that you know the program, it's time to apply. The first step is to ensure that your SAM.gov and grants.gov registration and passwords are current, because NEH will not grant deadline extensions for delayed registration. Registration in these systems can take up to a month to complete, so be sure to check on this as soon as possible. Remember, you are applying as an institution, so you will use your institution's account information. If you are unsure where to locate this information for your institution, staff in your development, grants management, or sponsored programs offices should be able to assist you. When you're in grants.gov, be sure to select or have your grant administrator select the appropriate package based on your project type so your application is evaluated appropriately. That is, be sure to select K-12 versus higher ed correctly. This is a very common error, so be sure to double check with your grant administrator that you or they have selected the correct package for your project. As we mentioned before, the NOFO is your guide for building your application. Section D, subsection 2 of the NOFO is probably the most important part because it concentrates on the content of your application. This section includes important and specific details regarding what must be included in your application and in what specific order and how files must be named. We encourage you to read this section and follow its directions very closely. Next, we want to highlight some important information regarding document formatting. First, unless otherwise specified, narratives and attachments should be single-spaced. Second, please note the different page limits for new and previously funded projects. If you have not been previously funded in the Institute's landmarks or seminars programs, you must limit your application narrative to 10 pages. If you have previously received an award under the Institute's landmarks or seminars programs, you must limit your narrative to 12 pages. Please be advised that applications with components that exceed stated page limits will be automatically declared ineligible. Third, all attachments must be PDFs. The grants.gov system will allow uploads of Word and Excel files, but it will also automatically mark your application as ineligible on our end, and we will not be able to review it. So please take the time and check that all of your files, including your budget justification, are saved as PDFs.
Institute applications will be evaluated using 3 review criteria: intellectual quality and significance, program design and feasibility, and impact. For intellectual quality and significance, reviewers will consider the significance of the topic for humanities scholarship and teaching. For program design and feasibility, reviewers will examine how the proposed project's length, meeting dates, format, facilities, and related resources support both substantive study and a collegial learning environment. And for impact, reviewers will be looking to understand how the proposed project will improve participants' understanding of the core humanities topics. As noted earlier in this webinar, additional indicators for each review criteria can be found in Section E of the NOFO.
As you draft, review, and revise your application, we'd like to offer some advice. First, the application must make the case for your project. Start with the review criteria in the NOFO. Demonstrate your project's significance, provide context for the Institute's humanistic content, and ensure the work plan and program of study are clear and realistic. Second, remember your audience. Keep the review criteria in mind and address them in the narrative. Write for specialists and generalists. Avoid jargon. Use concrete examples. And anticipate reviewers' possible questions and concerns and address them within the narrative. Third, attend to the details. Draft early and solicit feedback, either by submitting a draft narrative to us or having a trusted colleague review your work. Discuss your application with those responsible for writing letters of commitment and support. Review your bibliography and reading list. Include required supporting materials, and proofread. Finally, keep budget considerations in mind. We will return to the budget on a subsequent slide. However, you should consult budget guidelines in the NOFO, as well as the sample budget justification on the program resource page. Know which costs are and are not allowed. Contact the Office of Grant Management with specific questions at grantmanagement@neh.gov. And contact staff in your development, grants management, or sponsored programs offices for more assistance.
The project narrative is attachment 1 of the completed application. Some things we want to highlight for you as you develop this section of your application. The narrative must begin with the nature of the request, a brief 1-paragraph summary that includes the project title and its thematic or topical focus, whether this project is new or previously funded, and if applicable, how many times you have offered it previously, the length, dates, and format of the proposed institute, the specific number of participants the program will accommodate. You must indicate a specific number between 25 and 36, and target audience. While projects must be open to all eligible applicants, you must indicate the target audience by subject areas for institutes for higher education faculty, and by both specific grade levels and subject areas for institutes for K-12 educators. The nature of the request should be followed by these sections. Intellectual content and significance, formerly referred to as the intellectual rationale, explains why is this subject important. Format and program of study details how is the institute designed and how will participants explore the subject matter. Project team introduces who will work on the project. Institutional resources contextualizes what organizational resources will be provided to support the project and participants. And participants and follow-up specifies who is the intended participant audience, how will they be recruited to apply, and how will the project team follow up with participants post-institute. There are callouts for each section that apply specifically to previously funded projects. There are also multiple cues for applicants designing virtual or combined format projects where you'll need to share information about the platforms you'll be using, the audiovisual resources that will support you, etc. In addition to the project narrative, a completed institute's application includes the following attachments, described in Section D of the NOFO. Attachments 2 through 5 are required for all applications, both new and previously funded. Attachment 6 is required for previously funded projects, and attachments 7, 8, and 9 are conditionally required. If your proposal meets the specified conditions, you must submit those attachments. For the purposes of this webinar, we will focus on attachments 2 through 6. Attachment 2 is the academic schedule. This is the daily schedule for the program of study, which also includes a list of readings. Attachment 3 is the work plan. This document provides detail of the activities that will take place during the grant period, both before and after the program of study. NEH has scheduled required meetings, participant application deadlines, and reporting dates. These dates are provided in the NOFO and must be included in your work plan. Attachment 4 is a collection of resumes for key project personnel. Each resume must not exceed 2 pages per project team member. Attachment 5 is a collection of letters of commitment and support. Please note that there are specific requirements for who must submit a letter. For previously funded projects only, Attachment 6 is a collection of all participant evaluations from the most recent iteration of your institute, landmarks, or seminar program. These evaluations must be submitted in their original format. We now return to your project's budget. The research and related budget form will automatically integrate into your application, so you don't have to include it as an attachment. This is a form used across the federal government, So it is important that you read the NOFO guidelines on how to fill it out for this grant program's purposes. Some other things to note. All projects are required to submit a budget justification to complement the budget form itself. Be sure to attach that as a PDF. Compensation for project directors is typically calculated based on salary, fringe benefits, and project time. And stipend amounts are set by NEH and vary depending both on format and duration.
There are several things that we recommend you avoid in your application. You can find a more complete listing of funding restrictions in Section D of the NOFO, but we want to caution you against some of the most common issues we see in applications. The NEH cannot fund the promotion of any one political, religious, or ideological point of view, advocacy for a particular program of social or political action, or support of specific public policies or legislation. Instead, we recommend that applications include diverse and varied voices, scholars, and sources on your topic, root contemporary real-world issues in the humanities and focus on that humanities content in your application, and avoid buzzwords and jargon. While we value the integration of effective pedagogy and sound methodology in Institute's projects, your project must center humanities content. The NEH also cannot fund projects that fall outside of the humanities. Projects should not incorporate the creation or performance of art, nor should projects focus on participants developing products rooted in creative writing, autobiography, memoir, or creative nonfiction. The NEH cannot fund tuition fees for participants or student assistants. Participants are paid stipends, and student assistants can be paid members of the project team, but tuition is not an allowable expense. The NEH also cannot fund things such as socials, alcohol, or most meals, though there are some exceptions for working lunches and water.
Before we conclude this webinar, we want to remind you of the important dates for the upcoming application cycle. We will host a live Q&A session for this grant program on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024 at 12 p.m. Eastern. We're accepting optional draft narratives until 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Monday, January 6, 2025. Potential applicants may send draft narratives to the Institute's program inbox, and a program officer will review your draft and provide you with feedback. Only draft narratives may be submitted for review. As a reminder, draft narratives must be no more than 10 pages long for new applicants and 12 pages long for returning applicants. It's especially helpful if you submit specific questions you'd like the program officer to address along with your draft narrative. Please note that this optional preliminary review is not part of the formal review process and has no bearing on the final outcome of the proposal. However, previous applicants across grant programs have noted that participating in this preliminary review has been helpful in strengthening their final applications. Final applications will be due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, February 12, 2025, via grants.gov. We advise you not to wait until the last minute in case of technical issues and to account for processing time to validate in the grants.gov system. It's also a good idea, especially if you're at a larger institution, to check with your institutional grant administrator or your grants office to see if they have an earlier internal deadline you'll also need to be aware of.
The life cycle of an institute's application is approximately 6 months. There are 7 steps in the life cycle of any application, beginning with your application submission. After the application submission deadline, staff will organize eligible applications into panels for review. Next, review panels will discuss the applications, enter additional comments, and assign final ratings for each application on its own merits. After the panels have concluded, comes staff review and recommendations. Staff will organize the results from all program panels, summarize panelists' comments and evaluations, and make recommendations. Next is the National Council's review. The staff recommendations are made available to the National Council for the Humanities, an advisory body of 26 members who have distinguished themselves in the humanities. Members are nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate. They will meet in July to discuss the applications and make their recommendations for funding to the chair of the endowment. Once the National Council has deliberated, the chair of the endowment decides which applications will receive public funding. By law, the chair makes all final funding decisions. The final step in this process is notification, when all applicants are informed of the funding decisions. Regardless of the outcome of your application, you can get the most out of your relationship with the NEH by asking for your reviewer comments, contacting us for additional feedback or guidance, volunteering to serve as an NEH panelist, and applying again for this and other grant opportunities. With that, thank you so much for joining us. Here's our contact information, which is also listed online and in the NOFO, as well as links to the program resource pages. Please don't hesitate to reach out with questions and draft narratives. We look forward to hearing from you, and we wish you the best of luck.